Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio on July 29th, 2015. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting every Wednesday from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. Today on the show, we will have Stewart Swerdlow, a fascinating individual indeed, titled this episode, Moving to Higher Consciousness to Understand Experience. Yeah, there's a lot of things about our experiences that we don't understand, and Stewart, his mission is to move us to higher consciousness to help us understand experience. I have two people in the queue, area code 269 and area code 502. Not sure which one's Stewart. I'll check as soon as I get a chance, but first we're going to do the news. But before I do the news, I just want to point out, interestingly, it seems like every time Stewart says that he goes to a conference or has a radio show, there's always some sort of sabotage, be it like something to delay his flight or mode of transportation or scrambling his voice on the radio. I'm going to pay attention to that through this show. And speaking of sabotage, I think I was sabotaged of sorts. I just realized about half an hour ago before the show that a little orgone chip that I normally have to put on my cell phone to keep the negative EMF energies from the phone affecting me has vanished. And this is actually the third one of those chips that I've had that have vanished. I bought them all from MotherEarthOrgone.com. That's John Thompson's website. He was one of the previous guests on my shows. And I also had a little accident earlier today where $100 pyramid that I bought that I always sleep under and have under my seat as well whenever I'm doing the computers, whenever I'm at the computer. I can't have it now, obviously, because I broke it. I chipped it. And well, at this point, it's chipped. I can't really put it together. So I'm just going to try to smash it open to get all the stones out of it. Now, if this is sabotage or not, I don't really know if that's the right word, but I just called John Thompson, and his wife told me that my paternal grandfather, who passed away back in the year 2000, said that these things are disappearing. And apparently, I don't know if it's true with the pyramid, he didn't specify that, but these orgone chips that I've had, they've disappeared to get my attention because I'm having family lineage issues. Now, I think I know what that's about. I'm not really going to elaborate on that. Don't want to bore you all to death. But I don't know if it's a coincidence or just, well, no, there's no such thing as a true coincidence, but funny how I'm having a guest that always gets sabotaged on my show now, and I get sabotaged by having my orgone chip disappear for the third time. Well, there really are spiritual forces out there, folks, and this was no accident. Everything happens for a reason. And maybe I think I need to start living my life living without orgone chips and things like that, because, well, in reality, you're infinite, and that means that you should be able to, in the end, function without having to need the help of those things. Don't get me wrong, they certainly can help you attain higher consciousness, but in the end, you have to realize you are infinite. And, well, sabotage or not, it was a funny experience that I had this before having Stewart Swerdlow on. But anyway, I've babbled long enough about my experience. I need to get to the news now, and I will do that courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. First article, Cincinnati Craigslist post calls for blacks to shoot cops, burn police stations. Don't shoot at the chest because they have bulletproof vests on. Aim carefully and go for the head. Wow, this is another thing to get the start a race war with the blacks, the cops, the whites, and everybody else. Don't fall for it, folks. And I don't really know too much about the significance behind a Cincinnati Craigslist post, but and would they be calling for the whites to shoot cops and such? I don't know if they would. There must be some race behind this if they're calling for blacks to do it. But don't fall for this race war stuff. It's all a scam, a diversion, and a way to make us go against each other, divide and conquer. All right, next article report. Wives of British soldiers receive letter threatening jihad. We know where you live. Well, don't have time to look into this article to read about it in greater detail, but I'm guessing a lot of wives of American soldiers are getting letters threatening jihad as well. I'm sure that's happening with a lot of other countries too, but right now it's prominent with the British soldiers' wives. And Paul Joseph Watson, he's a British reporter. He's the one who wrote this, so I kind of guess that kind of makes sense that he'd be talking about wives of British soldiers, but I'm sure it's happening to American ones as well, like I said. Next article, video. AR-15 wielding business owner defends shop from armed robbers. We will protect our business and employees at any cost. Yes, let's hope he doesn't have to use that AR-15. And if he does have to use it to defend himself, you know the news is not going to report it. Well, don't get me wrong. I do actually remember hearing a story way back in the day about this Philadelphia shop owner who I believe he was a Chinese guy. He shot and killed someone trying to rob him. And they did talk about that on the news. And it was actually the second time he had killed someone who tried to rob his store. And the guy said on the news, look, I regret having to kill this guy, but hey, what am I supposed to do? I got to run my store. I'm not a murderer. I'm just defending myself. Well, give my local news credit for reporting on that. But nowadays, it's very unlikely you'll see that in the news because they don't want us to like guns. They want us to hate guns so they can brainwash us into thinking bad about guns so they can take our guns and inflict tyranny upon us. Don't fall for that, folks. It's why they staged Sandy Hook, to take the guns. Next article, Obama judge finds school over Christian prayer. The government turning Christians into second-class citizens. Well, some might say InfoWars is biased about this because Alex Jones and many of his friends are Christians and such. And well, I'm sure well, they don't have anything against Muslims or Jews or anything like that. They believe in freedom of religion because they're always talking about the First Amendment and such. But there has been a lot of demonization of the Christian people. And whoever this judge was, he's an Obama judge, they call him. What an asshole. Let's get him off the bench. Next article, Linda Tripp. Hillary Clinton believes Americans are little more than plebeians. Ruthless Hillary ran two-term Clinton administration. Yes, she did. And she's also blackmailing Obama to a great extent. And I will never forget that scene from David Icke's documentary Revelations of a Mother Goddess when Arizona Wilder was naming some political and corporate leaders that she had the chance to see at satanic Illuminati ceremonies shapeshift into reptilians. And she said, quote, I saw Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton, unquote. Next article, report, UK police arrest man for offending Muslims. Controversial public figure taken out of circulation to prevent him taking part in Mohammed cartoon meeting. Don't have time to look into this article to get the details, but the whole thing about showing Muhammad and the cartoon, and that's caused all sorts of controversy from South Park to the whole Benghazi thing and all the rest of it. It's and I'll never forget, I don't watch South Park anymore, but I used to. It was one of my favorite shows back in the day, and never forget that scene where Comedy Central did not show a picture of Muhammad in that episode that poked fun at Family Guy and everything, and they said that they decided not to show it because they fear would offend too many people. And the episode did make a little bit of a mockery of the First Amendment as well. And, well, you know, Comedy Central, they're going to go along to get along with the rest of the people that are going along to get along with the powers that be. So Comedy Central may be good for a laugh, but one reason I stopped watching South Park, they seem to be going along to get along with the plans of the New World Order and not really giving conspiracy theorists the benefit of the doubt. Next article, video. Cop smashes elbow into already restrained man's head. Officer charged with assault by his own chief. Okay, this is just one of many examples of cops beating up citizens. So I don't think I need to talk anymore about this. One last article here. FBI fabricates ISIS terror case from scratch. Agent provocateurs deliver dud bomb to Florida man. Yes, we know the New York Times did do that. Did do that article where they said terrorist attacks hatched by the FBI, where the FBI hatches the plans the terrorist attack and then arrests the people who were formulating the attack, never realizing that they were part of the attack, which was carried out by the FBI all along. Give the New York Times a lot of credit for actually reporting that. But that's enough of that. I got 3 people in the queue here. Let's see which one is Stewart. Area code 502, you are on the air. Is this Stewart?
No, this is Carol.
Okay, by the way, do you have a question?
Well, it's the first time I've been on with this subject matter, and
okay.
It just interests me.
Okay.
And, well, it's like healing yourselves in a positive way.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to listen, by all means, please do. But you don't actually have a question. I was going to let you on maybe in about an hour and 10 minutes or so.
I mean, I've had a lot of negativity, and I'm interested on what, I mean, speaking with someone, do they, you know, is it like a psychic experience or something?
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, all my shows start off in this like sort of negative manner because I always do the news courtesy of Alex Jones and Company at InfoWars. But don't worry, we'll get to more positive stuff in a little bit. So I'm gonna have to put you on hold because I really can't spend too much time talking to you because I gotta go let Stewart on. But I mean, if you want to think of a question, by all means do, and I can let you on maybe in an hour or so. And then if you want to ask something, by all means do. But for now, take care. I gotta let Stewart on. Hello, area code 269. Is this Stewart?
It sure is.
How you doing? First of all, I can't help but ask, has there been any sabotage lately that has prevented you from having trouble getting on this show, at least on the way here so far?
I've had sabotage since I was born.
Oh, okay. Well, no disrespect to the person in the queue who I was just speaking to about negative things, but you know what? It only makes sense for our listeners to understand why you. I mean, a lot of people that might be jealous of you, if you will, because a lot of people would say, "Why is it that you get to have all the fun of being sabotaged? Not that it's fun, but you get my drift." And like, why am I not a targeted individual? What am I not doing to piss off the powers that be that will cause them to sabotage me? So I mean, we'll get into the positive stuff in a little bit, by all means, with all due respect to the previous caller. But could you please explain to us, Stewart, what is it that you've done that causes you to be the victim of so much sabotage?
Well, I don't like to use the word victim. I just say it's a matter of circumstances. And of course, those of the listeners who know about my family background know that my great uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union, and his son started the KGB, and my grandmother was a Soviet spy. So yeah, that's the reason why I get attacked by the American government and the Western society. It's been something that's been my whole life, so I'm kind of used to it. I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have it.
Okay, fair enough. Just I'm going to be on mute whenever you're talking. So if you hear a slight pause, that's only because I'm getting off mute. But I saw your presentation at the Free Your Mind conference, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Although I must admit, it was kind of strange at the Free Your Mind conference. I did speak about this on my show with Janice Barcelo 2 days ago. Janice Barcelo, excuse me. Her first name is pronounced Janice. I explained when I had her on my show that when I was at that conference, I can't help but wonder if some entities were trying to keep me from hearing the information during the conference, because I mean, I got a lot of sleep on all the days of the conference. And like before the first presentation started, like literally 5 minutes before the first presentation, I drank half a bottle of 5 Hour Energy. And then halfway through the day, like maybe around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I drank the other half of the bottle of 5 Hour Energy. But the thing is, throughout the course of the presentations on all the days of the conference, I found myself nodding off, struggling to stay awake. And I couldn't understand why, because, well, for one, I got enough sleep the night before, and I was wired on caffeine, and that kind of led me to think that maybe some entity was trying to zonk me out to keep me from hearing the important information in those conference presentations. Excuse me for sounding paranoid and all, but it was kind of strange because that's not the first time that happened. That also happened to me at the David Icke presentation back in October 2012 when I was in London and saw that, and that happened to me there too. But anyway, I'd like to, before we get into the stuff that you talked about in your Free Your Mind presentation, you did, when you were on In5D Radio, give a story about this comet that came into the solar system. And it was a very interesting story, and I'd like you to go through that again. And there are a few contradictions in that story that other people, like in your area of research and not in your area of research for that matter, who have studied Earth's history and the solar system history, would say, well, that's not the story that we have of how the solar system was created. So why don't you give your version, and I will jot notes as you're going along to see if I can find a contradiction alert, and then an alarm bell will go off in my head saying, aha, there's a contradiction. I'll point that out to Stewart after you give your talk. So go through that whole story about the solar system creation, the comet, and the planets and whatnot that you did in the first part of the In5D Radio interview that you did in the not too distant past. And then after that, I'll point out the contradictions.
Well, fine. You can point out any contradiction you want. Doesn't change the truth. And I have talked about this many, many times, and it's in my book, Blue Blood, True Blood, and True World History. And it goes way back before the comet ever entered into the solar system, and that's when the Draco star system attacked the Lyrian star system. The refugees from the Lyrian star system fanned out through other parts of the galaxy to colonize it. And one of the colonies was here in this solar system. They colonized what was the planet Mars, which had an atmosphere very much like the Earth does now, and the planet Maldek, which existed between Mars and the planet Jupiter. The Earth at that time was in the second position from the Sun and was mainly covered in water, and even the atmospheric conditions were very fluid. And when the Draco Empire found the colonies in the solar system, they sent an ice comet into the solar system, which caused the planet Uranus to flip on its axis. It's the only known planet that goes north to south instead of east to west. And then the ice comet continued on towards Maldek and Mars, and the geomagnetic pull of the giant gas planet Jupiter, the ice comet, Mars, and Maldek caused Maldek to explode, which created the asteroid belt that exists now between Mars and Jupiter. And it also pulled the oceans and atmospheres off of Mars, as well as almost 3 kilometers of topsoil from the northern hemisphere of Mars, which is why there's an indentation there to this very day. And as the ice comet continued on towards the Earth, it pulled into a spin between the Earth and the ice comet, and the ice comet then caused the Earth to polarize the oceans, creating the polar ice caps and creating land masses that then rose up over the ocean. And the ice comet took up the second position from the Sun, and the Earth was pushed into the third position from the Sun. And because of the light of the Sun, the ice on the comet started to evaporate and created a cloud cover. And that ice comet became what we know as the planet Venus, which is why it's covered in clouds. And the Earth then became colonizable, and the reptilians, or the Dracos, drove another vehicle into this solar system and parked it in orbit around the Earth, and we know that new vehicle as the Moon. And that is why the Moon does not spin as other objects do in space. It only faces one position towards the Earth, like a vehicle parked in orbit, which it is. And from that moon that we now have, they colonized the largest continent that appeared above the oceans, which we now know as Lemuria. And they existed there for tens of thousands of years and colonized it. They were the first beings who colonized the surface of this planet. And it wasn't until many, many thousands and tens of thousands of years later that humans then colonized the second largest continent, which we know of as Atlantis. And then there became wars between the two. I wrote about all this in Blue Blood, and there was a peace treaty. They created a third race, a synthesis between the reptilians and the mammalians, and that is what humanity is. And they used the reptilian body as the basis of that new race, and then they added mammalian genetics to that. And the proof of that is in the gestation of a human in the utero. You can see that the first few weeks of creation, the baby is a androgynous reptilian, and then only after 6 or 7 weeks, mammalian genetics open up, and there's more characteristics of humanity in there, and that is because the DNA is following the sequences in which it was created. And so that is how humanity was formed and created on the earth. And that's why in Genesis in the Bible it says, let us create man in our image. And it's all plural because it was a group effort between the reptilians and the mammalian Illyrians, refugees who came here. And that is why humans on this planet have both reptilian and mammalian characteristics. Which is unusual in creation. We are a race that is artificially created and is an anomaly, basically, in this particular galaxy.
Okay. Of course, you say it doesn't change the truth, but hey, there's a few things I heard there that I absolutely got to bring to your attention. I'll start off small. You say the moon doesn't spin. Now, this is controversial. Some people say the moon actually does rotate, but it rotates at the same speed as it orbits the Earth, and that's the reason we see the same side of the moon. But you're saying, no, it doesn't rotate at all. It just wobbles in such a manner that we see the same side. So how can you confirm that all those people that say that the moon spins at the same rate as it orbits the Earth are wrong?
First of all, they have to realize that the moon is artificial. The Earth isn't large enough to capture an object that large into its atmospheric or geomagnetic position. The moon does not spin. The same side faces. It doesn't spin. There is light only on that one side of the moon. The other side is dark. It does not change. So they could say whatever they want. Doesn't change the truth.
Okay, fair enough. And the whole thing about the asteroid belt and how that planet Maldek broke apart. Now, the planet, I'm assuming that Maldek, that's another name for the planet some people call Marduk. Michael Tsarian has talked about how the planet Marduk was also in the same place you said it was, between Mars and Jupiter, and it broke apart and formed the asteroid belt, although he refers to it as Marduk and not Maldek. But the problem with
let me stop you right there.
Okay.
Marduk is not Maldek. Marduk
It's
is
not.
another name for Nibiru, which was the planet that goes in an elliptical orbit around the solar system every 3,500 years. Two different objects.
Yeah, yes, but that's where the controversy comes in, because people who follow the work of Zecharia Sitchin would say that one of Nibiru's moons collided with the Earth, and that formed the asteroid belt. And also, you talked about how the reptilians created the like the humans in their image and such, and that's what it refers to in Genesis. But no, some people that followed the work of Zecharia Sitchin, well, yeah, him too, but also Andrew Bartzis, Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis, he made it very clear that Sitchin's first 3 books are extremely accurate. And yes, there is the Anunnaki, they do exist on Nibiru. They're not the reptilians. They are actually a race of human-like giants. And those human-like giants, the Anunnaki, they did create an alliance with the reptilians, the Draco reptilians that you speak of. But like some people like David Icke have said that the Anunnaki and the reptilians are one and the same. No, that's a misconception. They're not. So this kind of raises a couple questions. How do you know that Sitchin was wrong about his claim that the asteroid belt was formed by one of Nibiru's moons colliding with the Earth? And do you actually subscribe to the idea that the Anunnaki from Nibiru genetically engineered humans the way Sitchin talks about?
First of all, Nibiru didn't have any moons because Nibiru is an artificial object. Second of all, if any object collided with the Earth, like he said, we wouldn't be talking about it right now because we wouldn't exist. So that whole idea is absolutely bizarre. Second of all, I agree with David Icke, and he's a friend of mine. His information is correct, and it's a known fact that Sitchin misinterpreted and mistranslated Sumerian tablets. Now, I met Sitchin many years ago in Switzerland, and I can tell you that he had an agenda. You can take it or leave it, but I also know that he was very proud of the fact that a lot of his information got people killed. I heard him say it myself. So no, I am not a proponent of what he said. I know he misinterpreted things, mistranslated things from the Sumerian and from the ancient Aramaic. And it says in the book of Enoch, and it says in the book of Jasher, and the book of Jubilees, which is in the Apocrypha, it talks about all of these things. And the planet Maldek existed and exploded, and that's why the asteroid belt is there. If anything that large collided with the Earth, we wouldn't exist.
Oh yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. In fact, I do have a problem with Sitchin's translation of how the Earth's moon was formed. I mean, the moon is obviously artificial. There's so many things that show that it is. So Sitchin's claim that the that collision with Nibiru, or one of its moons, as he claimed, could have formed the moon doesn't make any sense. But I must raise some doubts about your claim that Sitchin was in some way a fraud, because when Andrew Bartzis, the Akashic Records reader, said that Sitchin's first 3 books are very accurate, I immediately thought, what are you talking about? Because I do remember that scene from David Icke's Revelations of a Mother Goddess documentary when Arizona Wilder said she saw Sitchin at satanic Illuminati rituals. She said he was actually a shape-shifting reptilian and his job was to disinform about the reptilians and the Illuminati. And I also remembered the scene from Project Camelot when ex-Freemason Leo Zagami said that Sitchin was a disinformer who got assistance from the Vatican. And when I met Andrew Bartzis at a conference in Sarasota, Florida, back in October 2013, I put him on the spot and I told him about this. And I asked him, could you please explain to me how Zecharia Sitchin's first 3 books could have been accurate if he was literally a reptilian disinformer? And Andrew Bartzis told me that Leo Zagami and Arizona Wilder, they were inadvertently lying. They thought they were telling the truth when they said that Sitchin was a fraud. But what happened to them was their spirit body and their physical body went through a complex form of timeline mind control in which entities that Bartzis called timeline watchers intermingled and screwed around with their spirit and physical body to put them on an alternate timeline, which caused them to spew out disinformation about Sitchin. And apparently the reason they did that is because they don't want people to know that Sitchin's books were very accurate. Now, Stewart, I don't want to argue like to a great extent with you about this, but because Andrew Bartzis told me this, and you know what people say about Akashic Records readers, if they say it, then that means the Akashic Records say it, and if the Akashic Records say it, then it must be true. I mean, we could debate all day about this, but do you still agree that there must be something wrong about here? Do you still think Sitchin was a fraud in spite of what I just told you?
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying to you. I never said he was a fraud. I said he mistranslated the Sumerian tablets and the Aramaic information. Who this other person is that you met, I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. I cannot comment about him. But I know all the other people that you mentioned, and I can tell you that what they told you was true.
Okay, well, just leave it at that at this point. You talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. I'm interested to know, do you subscribe to the idea that there were many different Atlantises and Lemurias over the course of many millions of years, or was there just one Atlantis and one Lemuria, the one that we think of that, the Atlantis that collapsed around like 13,000 years ago, and then there was also the Lemuria that existed before then?
Well, that's a very confusing question. There was only one Lemuria, and there was only one Atlantis. Now, if you want to talk about alternate realities and infinite realities, yeah, there's millions of them, just as there's millions of current timelines right now. But there was only one, and Atlantis was destroyed in this timeline approximately 10,500 BC. So I'm not sure exactly where you're going with that, but there's only one of each.
Okay. Well, once again, my source for that was Andrew Bartzis in that interview series he did with Lance White, which is on YouTube. It's like a 15-part series. He did talk about many different rises and falls of Atlantis and Lemuria. So that's something that people might want to research in greater detail. But one other thing you talked about during your thing about the comet moving through the solar system, you mentioned Jupiter is a gas giant. How do you know that? Because in my interview with John Lear, he talked about how he's got inside sources who talked about how every planet in the solar system has its own like consciousness filtering system, which works in conjunction with the sun. The sun is actually electromagnetic. It's not powered by nuclear fusion. And it transmutes energy to every planet through a universal web that we can't see because it's outside visible light, but it's like an electromagnetic web. Stars are hot spots on that web. Planets and asteroids and moons are going to be thought of as cold spots on the web. And it doesn't matter how far a planet is. There is no Goldilocks zone for life. Because every planet receives energy from the sun through this universal web, and every planet's atmosphere has a filtering system, or so John Lear says, which allows for life to exist. So Jupiter, he said, the only gas giant in the solar system is NASA. Well, some other people have said, no, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they are gas giants, but they do have life on them because of that filtering system that John Lear speaks of. So this whole controversy over whether or not Jupiter and the other outer planets in the solar system are or are not gas giants, what's your general take on that debate?
The only gas giants that exist are Jupiter and Saturn. Now, they do have a metallic core so that the gas and the liquids are around that. And as far as life is concerned, there's many different forms of life. It's not life the way it is here on Earth. It can have many different forms. It could be energetic. It can be interdimensional, etc. So yes, I believe that on other dimensions and other frequencies, life exists everywhere. So yeah, that's very possible. Neptune is not a gas giant. Uranus is not a gas giant. These are solid planets. Pluto is artificial. And of course, Jupiter and Saturn have many moons around them, which in effect makes them like mini solar system. And those moons could have life around them and oceans and atmospheres.
You say Pluto is artificial. That's completely new. I've heard that from people like ET contactee Alex Collier that I believe he said there are 7 moons in the solar system that are artificial. Our moon is one of them, and also Jupiter's moon Ganymede, and also Mars's moon Phobos, and also Deimos, I believe. Saturn's moon Iapetus is another one that's artificial. The largest asteroid, Ceres, is also artificial. Can you name any other moons that are artificial that I didn't name? And aside from that, where's the evidence that Pluto is artificial? Because that's new to me.
You know, I agree with what you just said about those objects being artificial. Ceres is definitely artificial, and some of the moons of Saturn and Jupiter are artificial. Pluto only existed since 1930. It's a so-called Kuiper Belt object, and if you have read any of my information about the Kuiper Belt, you will know that there is a massing of entities, beings, interdimensional creatures that are there who are surrounding the solar system for reasons that they have of their own. Pluto is an artificial object, and in fact, NASA just last week released information about Pluto that said it's very odd. It's newer than they thought it would be, that there is an artificial, or there's a strange mountain in the middle surrounded by a moat, and that it's much smoother than they thought, almost like an object created instead of a natural object. So yes, all of these things are slowly being revealed by the media. Things that I have said for years. And Pluto is basically a satellite that's been put into the orbit in the solar system to monitor what's going on here, along with many other objects in the Kuiper Belt.
Yes, you did mention the Kuiper Belt in your Free Your Mind presentation, and you mentioned something about whistleblowers like Edward Snowden having some connection to the Kuiper Belt. Could you please elaborate in great detail on what that and all the other people that you know of that have Kuiper Belt connections that are whistleblowers have to do with it?
Well, I'm only going to mention the ones I've already mentioned, because the ones who are not in public, I'm not going to reveal who they are and cause problems for them. But the Kuiper Belt is, there's a massing of a fleet there. It's many civilizations. They consider the Earth to be like the Iraq of the universe that needs to be contained and monitored. And they were concerned about what the Illuminati plans are for the Earth, because it affects not only this solar system, but it goes beyond that and even into other parallel universes. And what they're going to do is they're going to wait for the Illuminati to complete their agenda of a staged alien invasion and a staged second coming of Christ, etc., to create a global government, global army, global religion, and then there will be a real alien invasion that will be centered from the Kuiper Belt. They use people like Snowden and like other people who reveal information to sabotage the Illuminati, so that people become aware that what the information they're receiving from the media is not correct, and that the politicians are not telling the truth. And people like Snowden and others are there for a purpose in order to create maybe a sabotage for the Illuminati.
All right, the idea of an alien invasion, we've probably all heard about how Werner von Braun told this woman that there would be a series of plots that the Illuminati would be doing to on their trek to global government. There was world wars, terrorist attacks, and the last thing he talked about was a staged alien invasion. Now, it has been asserted by some that a staged alien invasion, well, first of all, there can't really be a staged alien invasion because we are already under an alien invasion in the sense that the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys and the rest of the Archon control system are aliens, and they are invading the Earth, although they're not making it obvious that they're invading the Earth. It's more of a manipulation and not an invasion, some would assert. But the idea that they could actually pull off a true alien invasion does seem kind of absurd, because, well, there's a little debate about this, but do you feel that some people are right when they assert that humans, if they saw an alien invasion happening, they're too smart and would realize, oh, this is obviously staged. We're not going to fall for it. We're not going to fall for the old War of the Worlds trick that Orson Welles pulled on us all those years ago? Or do you think humanity is too stupid to realize a staged alien invasion is truly staged?
Well, quite honestly, humanity is pretty stupid. And they are programmed and mind controlled to believe whatever the media and the government tells them. And the stages that Wernher von Braun told to the secretary on his deathbed was that, yes, there would be terrorist attacks first. Then there would be asteroids and meteors that would be threatening the Earth, which we have. And then he said the final stage would be an alien invasion, which would be created as a holographic illusion, so that people think the Earth is being attacked. And they have already accomplished that ability with the Blue Beam Project, been around for decades, even since the 1960s, where they can holographically create starships, weapons, etc., in the ionosphere of the Earth to make people think that the Earth is being attacked. And they can do this, and they have already tested this in many locations around the Earth. Yes, people believe what CNN tells them, what BBC tells them, what Fox News tells. People believe that because they don't think for themselves. Everybody's too obsessed with paying their mortgage and keeping their jobs and what the price of gasoline is. That's what people care about. They really don't care about who's in power or what country's being attacked or invaded. People don't care about that thing. But when they are told that, yes, there's an alien invasion and they see things in the sky, they will believe it, just like they believe everything that Britney Spears tells them and everything that Lady Gaga tells them. These people out there, they believe it because these are programming icons, and they are programmed and mind-controlled to believe what is told to them. So, yes, unfortunately, that is what is happening. And if you go out there, as I do, and I go to all over the world, I've been to all 7 continents, most countries of the world, most people believe what they're told by the news. Very few question, because if they question, then they may have to do something about it, and they don't want to. They want to just live their life, watch television, see who's on, America Has Talent or whatever, and that's how they want to live their lives and eat McDonald's and that kind of thing. So yes, people will accept what the government tells them. They will believe that the Earth is being invaded, and the whole scenario will be swallowed by them as a whole package.
Yeah, since you say humanity in general is stupid, I must commend you for pointing that out. I apologize to all my listeners who take offense to me commending you for calling humanity stupid, but I will acknowledge that on my show, on many occasions, I have asserted that one of the unfortunate truths of life is the reason that so many governments and corporations have such an easy time getting away with their secrets and conspiracies getting exposed all the time by whistleblowers, conspiracy theorists, and investigative journalists is because humanity, to a great extent, is so paradigmatic, fearful, and stupid that they'll refuse to believe something shocking or disturbing, even if the evidence shows that they have no choice but to believe it. And after I say that, I try to say, well, please don't take offense to what I said. I do acknowledge that the reason that we are like that is because we were genetically engineered to be paradigmatic, fearful, and stupid by alien entities who wanted to keep us in line as a slave species. And if you want to learn more about that, study the work of Zecharia Sitchin and David Icke. I always point that out. But would you acknowledge, yes, the reason we are so stupid is because we were genetically engineered by the Anunnaki and other archontic forces to dumb us down and keep us in line more easily?
Yes, it has to do with the genetic programming as well as what has been added subsequent to birth. Because you have to remember, since World War II, The Earth has been ringed by satellites, cell phone towers, computers, televisions, radios, beaming ELF microwave carrier waves that basically piggyback on the brainwave and make people think certain things, and they think it's their own thoughts. Now, you have to also remember that as far as conspiracy theorists are concerned, the media has an agenda now to make conspiracy theorists look dangerous. The guy that shot all those people in Lafayette, Louisiana last week, guess what? He had a blog online that condemned the government and talked about conspiracies and all the people that killed other people in movie theaters, and the guy that shot the black people in South Carolina. All of them were conspiracy theorists, and they're all dangerous. And that's why the media is bringing all of these stories up and creating these staged events so that people are afraid of those who believe in conspiracies. And that's been going on for a couple of years now. So, people have to accept or reject whatever they want. Doesn't matter what I say or what you say or David Icke says. Doesn't matter. Either you accept it or you reject it, and that's your choice. But ultimately, you will see what's coming on the earth, and then you will realize what the truth is.
Okay, switching gears, I'd like to talk about some personal things about you, not private life or anything like that. But what I mean is, it says you're a linguist who speaks 10 languages. Sitchin in his books did talk about the whole Tower of Babel story. I did read his first 3 books, believing that Andrew Bartzis was right when he said Sitchin's first 3 books are generally accurate. And he did talk about the Tower of Babel story to some degree in one of those books, talking about how it was used to screw up our languages to confuse the human race. As someone who speaks 10 languages, can you attest? Yes, we do speak so many languages because we were programmed to speak many languages to confuse us.
No, that's not exact. That is not what happened at all.
Okay.
When you read the Bible, it's not to be taken literally. The Bible is symbolic. It's a cover story for other things. At one time, in ancient times, there was only one language around the whole earth. But after the destruction of Atlantis, and there were different colonies, and then there was interference by certain alien groups who interfered with certain civilizations and added their concepts to it. That's how languages changed, because of isolation, because of influence by other beings. That's what happened. There was no Tower of Babel, as the Bible says. That's symbolic of ancient history. The Bible is not to be taken literally. In fact, I encourage people to study the Bible code so that you can see that behind the words in the Old Testament, there is actually layers and layers of other information that is behind it. And then you can see that the Bible was not written by human beings, but it was written or programmed by a computer, and gives many possibilities of the present and the future, depending on the pathways and the choices that people make at the current moment.
It's interesting how you point out the Bible code, because people have all sorts of takes on that. Like this dude, Brendan McKay, he says, I think the Bible code, it's really no more significant than looking up in the sky and seeing a cloud that looks like an elephant. I mean, some people might see some spiritual significance in that, but I don't. And he also did that experiment where in like the book Moby Dick, he did his own Bible code research, and he found stuff talking about the assassinations of JFK, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. And some people went out on a limb and said, oh, well, that proves that God also wrote Moby Dick, or something to that effect. But the point is, the whole Bible code, and whether or not we should believe that it's true, some people, like David Icke, for example, he says he does not subscribe to the idea of there being a Bible code, but the excuse he gave for not believing it does seem kind of ridiculous to me. He said, well, the Bible code says Oswald killed JFK, or at least that's what can be interpreted from the crossings of the words in the Bible code. And we all know that the official story of the JFK assassination is a goddamn joke. Well, I'm thinking, well, just because Oswald did not actually kill Kennedy does not mean that the Bible code is a joke. Just because it says Oswald killed Kennedy, the Bible code is merely just going by the official story. Likewise, the same can be said about 9/11 and the Pentagon attack. There is some stuff in the Bible code talking about the 9/11 Pentagon attack being hit by an airplane, and we all know that the Pentagon was not hit by an airplane, and yet the Bible code seems to suggest that. And David Icke would probably say, well, that's another thing that shows the Bible code is a fraud because it's telling a story that did not happen. Well, no, I attest it's telling the official story, which is obviously a lie, but the Bible code, because the Bible is in a sense a form of brainwashing, like religion is brainwashing, it shouldn't come as an astonishment that the Bible code would do that. So I'm guessing you're asserting, yeah, the Bible code is real, but what do you have to say to all these people like David Icke who say it's a joke because it tells bogus stories?
Well, it doesn't tell bogus stories. In order to understand the Bible code, you need the key. We don't have the key. In fact, the Bible code says itself that the key is going to be found in a peninsula called Lishon by the Dead Sea, which is at this point under control of the Jordanian government. And the Jordanian government refused to allow anyone to excavate there, so the key is not available at this moment. But if we were to get the key to the Bible code, then we would know the proper input to get the proper information. We have to also realize that the Bible code gives possibilities. It doesn't give absolute in-stone concrete information. It says this is possible and that is possible. You know, when they originally looked at the Bible code and they looked at atomic war or nuclear war, it said that that would happen in 2006, and obviously it did not. So it was only a possibility depending on the key that you use to unlock the proper information. It's all a question of what you put in that results in what you get out of it.
I could definitely agree with you on that. But again, some people like Brendan McKay are not really going to be convinced. The Bible code, the thing about it, the author is not bound by time, but when you realize time is an illusion, that shouldn't come as an astonishment. But then again, I'm babbling along here. Something else I want to talk about. You had your natural abilities enhanced because you spent 13 years at the Montauk Project. I need to give you the chance to play the role of primary source here to tell us about your experiences on Montauk and also your natural abilities that became enhanced. Talk all you want about this. You got the floor.
Well, that's a very, very long story, and I wrote about it in several books. And the Montauk Project was about mind control, programming, genetic manipulation, esoteric weaponry, weather manipulation, time travel, interdimensional work, hyperspace work. There were so many things and projects over the 13 years that were done at that time. It's a very, very vast topic. And on the other hand, they also did things like sexual magic ritual and genetic programming for future generations and alien contact. So many things, you know. So I mean, it depends where you want to go with that because there's so many possibilities and topics. But I would say that one of the things we learned at the Montauk Project was that you cannot change the past. As you mentioned, time and space is an illusion. And really, the only thing that exists is what we call the eternal now. And at Montauk, they had many adventures where they tried to go back into the past in order to change it, but they could not. And the reason is that in the mind of God, or all that is, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to use, all possibilities exist. There are infinite realities, infinite parallel universes, alternate timelines. So the reason you can't change the past is because everything's already happened somewhere. So there's no reason to change it because it's already existed. It's just a question of which timeline you wish to access and accept as your particular reality and follow that one. Everything depends on the choices that each individual makes. And actually, with every choice in your mind, you can create an entire timeline. The future is fluid. It's not cast in stone. Every possibility can exist. So when they went into the future and they saw different events and different wars, different final situations, it doesn't mean that will happen in this timeline. It means that's one of the possibilities. So it's just a question of what choices we make now that will extrapolate to what we will see as our actualized reality at any particular time in time and space.
The issue that you said about how you can't go into the past to change the present, that's debatable. I did have Andrew Bashago on my show, and we did talk about this in great detail. I encourage my listeners to listen to that interview. We didn't talk about time travel until after the first 45 minutes because I spent some time talking about Bashago's political campaign and how he sees politics because he's running for president in 2016. But we did talk about time travel into the past and how it could be used to change the present. He likes to use the analogy that you can, when it comes to timeline manipulation, you can think of timelines as lanes on a freeway and the cars on the freeway as the events on the timeline. And when a car shifts from one freeway lane to another, it affects the flow of cars on both the freeway lane that it entered and the freeway lane that it left. Similarly, when you shift events from one timeline to another, you affect not just the timeline that you have the events enter into, but also the one from which that event left. And Bashago did explain that people think that, well, if you go back in time and like kill your grandfather to try to create a grandfather paradox, you're not going to vanish out of existence, because when you kill your grandfather, you're just going to create another timeline which is independent of the one that you originally came from, so there'll be no paradox. Well, that's not necessarily true, Bashago talked about, because you can, after you go into the past, do something to shift events into other timelines, which can, if you do it right, affect events in the present from the timeline that you originally came from. Well, he's got time travel experience, so he says, and a lot of people think he doesn't know what he's talking about, but hey, he seemed pretty honest and sincere to me. So the idea that you can go into the past and by doing proper procedure, shift events so that you do affect the present and the timeline you originally came from, do you think that that is possible?
No, I just said it's not possible because you go into another timeline. And even using his analogy, when you shift lanes in the freeway, the lanes are the same. You can't change the lanes. They exist. You're simply going into a different timeline. The lanes represent different timelines. So he's basically saying what I said, but he's misunderstanding the end result. You don't change the timeline you're in because that's the one you're in. You can change the events, no, to events that already exist and accept them as your truth, and then you enter the timeline where that's the truth. You don't change the original timeline. If that were true, the existence would be completely screwed up because people would be changing things left and right. There'd be no cohesiveness anywhere. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, but some have asserted that if you go back in time and create some sort of a paradox, then something has to happen as a result of you creating that paradox. Like the grandfather paradox, for example, is just one of many different examples of let's try going back to what I said about how those people that talked about Zecharia Sitchin being a disinformer. Andrew Bartzis told me that what happened to those people, their spirit bodies and their physical bodies had some sort of manipulation done to them, so they perceived events on a timeline differently. It's not that they had a different experience, it's that they interpreted the event differently than it actually happened because their spirit bodies and physical bodies were manipulated. Bartzis has said that it would be very, very complicated for him to explain the whole process of how a specific individual in a specific manner is tampered with in their spirit and physical bodies to perceive events differently. But in one of his question and answer sessions, in one of his League of Consciousness Explorers videos, which I am a member of, and I saw that he did try to to give a general outline explaining how people can perceive events differently by their spirit and physical bodies being manipulated. And the way that is done, one of the ways it is done is going back in time and creating some sort of a paradox, which in the future, I don't remember if he specified which timeline this would happen on, but it would, like, among other things, if the powers that be don't want two people to meet, or hypothetically don't want whistleblowers coming out, or maybe don't want you and me meeting together on a radio show, they could do something going back in time and create some sort of a paradox which would intermingle with our spirit and physical bodies to make us perceive events differently, which would interfere with our ability to meet or whatever. Now, I'm sure you're going to say, no, that isn't possible, because you just told me for the past few minutes or so, no, that isn't possible. But hey, I just had to bring this to your attention because, hey, this is one of the sources that told me. So, Stewart, any comments?
You know, you can believe whatever you want. Again, I know that's not correct. Yes, they can program you to believe certain things, but it doesn't change the timeline. You know, you could be programmed to believe that, Bozo is president, and you might really believe that. That doesn't mean you went back in time and changed it so that Bozo's president. It means you just believe it now because you're programmed to believe it. It didn't change the past.
Okay, do you have any theories? One thing I do regret not asking Andrew Bashago, well, maybe he did actually explain this. I'm just not remembering it very well. Because, Andrew Bashago, he claims that there's that picture of him at the Gettysburg Address, and he's a young child there, like 10 years old or something. And he does look kind of out of place. And if you take a picture of him when he was 10 years old, like one of his middle school photographs, it does sort of look like that kid in the picture. And he definitely believes that he is the kid in that picture. So do you have any theories as to how it's possible that Andrew Bashago could have appeared in that picture of the Gettysburg Address, which he did show, by the way, in that episode of Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura that dealt with time travel? How was something like that possible?
Quite honestly, I don't believe it. I could find pictures of anybody in the past that look like other people and tell you that that's that person, when in fact there are a lot of people that look alike, and a lot of old photographs that really are not that clear, and you can say it's anybody. I mean, I have a picture of myself from when I was a child that looks exactly like my grandson. So does that mean I'm him? No, it just means there's someone who looks like me. And you can believe whatever you want, but I know that it is not correct.
Okay, you're entitled to believe whatever you want. This is a free will universe, so believe what you want. But one of your missions, it says, is to help others heal themselves in a positive way, thus avoiding the negativity you experienced. And kudos to you for that one. But one debate on this whole issue, and I personally have had a couple of problems with some of my listeners accusing me of this. It has been asserted that people like Alex Jones, and maybe even me to some degree, we are giving the powers that be power because we are talking about them, and thus we're giving them our attention. Now, the counter argument that people like me, and also Mark Passio, for example, Mark Passio, who was at the Free Your Mind conference like you were, he did a masterpiece 7-hour presentation called New Age Deception and the Suppression of the Sacred Masculine, where he talked about how you're not going to save the world if you go out in nature and meditate for 8 hours a day thinking positive things all day long while doing nothing to wake people up out of the matrix. You have to get active. You have to acknowledge that you're in a matrix. You have to do something about the negativity. And unfortunately, that does mean you got to wake people up by talking about things that people who are sheeple would find to be scary. And while some would assert that you're giving the powers that be your power, you're giving them power, your power by doing that, others would assert, like Mark Passio would assert, no, that doesn't apply in a situation in which you are exposing the powers that be and talking about the powers that be for the purpose of defeating them. If you want to be the powers that be, you got to expose them and talk about them and give them your attention. And the fact that you're doing that to try to beat them means that you are not giving them your power. The law of attraction, as people like Passio would assert, does not work like that. Do you agree that that is the way the law of attraction works? Or is there, unfortunately, truth to the idea that you are giving your power to the powers that be, even if you expose them for the sake of trying to stop them?
Well, I actually agree with Mark Passio about how you explained it. I agree with that. Yes, you can't just meditate for hours on end on positive thinking and thinking, and that's enough. You have to be proactive and actually do something. Now, that doesn't mean you smack people in the head and force them. As I've said, you can accept or reject. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will reject what I'm saying to you now on this show, and that's their issue. That's fine. And there are those others who will accept, and that's also fine. Everyone has to go within. The battle should not be on the streets. It should not be with weapons. The war is within your mind. The war is for you to take your own mind back. And I always use the analogy. Thoughts are like film. The brain is the projector. Physical reality is the screen. So if you don't like the movie that's playing in your reality, you have to change the film, and that's the way you think. And that's really the bottom line of the whole thing. Just change your thoughts, project out what you want to experience, and that's what you will experience. If you allow the mind control to take hold, you will experience that. If you accept negative emotions and bad experiences, that's what you will have. So you need to change that and teach other people to do that, and eventually it'll reach a critical mass and spill over to the rest of humanity. And then the Illuminati and those who have power will not have any effect. Because humanity, as a species, has a victimization mind pattern. Victimization attracts negativity, oppressors, and tyrants. If you remove the victimization, those tyrants and oppressors can no longer exist. They will not be reflected out from the mind pattern. So it's really as simple as going within and changing the way you think. And that doesn't mean meditating for hours and hours on certain things. It means releasing the negativity. You could do that in a second. Grow up the child within, connect to the oversoul and the God mind and the absolute, deprogram yourself from the mind control. This is what people should be doing on a daily basis, especially now when the agenda is in full force and all the mind control programs, all the switches are flipped to on position. We need to be working on ourselves right now, doing protection technique and release work, not acquiescing to, who cares what the timeline was hundreds of years ago or what the future's. That doesn't matter. Look at what's in front of you right now in the eternal now, in this moment. That's what counts. If you keep looking at the past, you're going to trip over something as you're walking forward. You need to keep your eyes in front of you. And that's what I teach people to do. And again, they can accept it or reject it. It's their free will. And, all I do is say what I know. I don't care if you believe me or not. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't change what I know, what I experienced. It's up to each individual to accept or reject. And that's what I say. And as far as what, politics is concerned, religion is concerned, these are man-made creations. These are mind control programming issues. You say when someone's a Christian, that's mind control to me. All of religion is a mind control. I don't care if you believe in Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha. It doesn't matter. It's all mind control. God does not have a religion. God does not have an icon. God is within you. You are the savior of yourself. And that's what people need to look at and work on and extrapolate that out into creation.
Okay, fair enough. I can certainly believe that taking up religion is not a good idea because if you believe in some higher power, then you are taking away from the fact that you are that higher power because you're infinite. Andrew Bartzis, the Akashic Records reader, has often said that metaphysically speaking, the Buddhists are the most accurate, but even in the end, the Buddhists are wrong. But I don't want to elaborate on that. But one thing I do want to ask you about, just for the hell of it, is it has been asserted by some that it is a complete and total misconception to assert that all the religious figures, Jesus, Buddha, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Muhammad, King Solomon, Abraham, and all the rest of them, and even the Greco-Roman pantheon of gods, it is wrong to say that they did not exist. It has been said by some that they did exist and they have to exist by virtue of the fact that people think about them and at some point believed in them, and by virtue of the fact that thoughts and beliefs manifest, then those entities have to exist in some dimension, density, realm, whatever word you want to use, but they have to exist. because thoughts manifest. Now, like in the case of Jesus, we could debate all day about this, but like Andrew Bart says, he is my favorite source because of his Akashic Records reading skills. He asserted that Jesus was a solar being. He was a human incarnate of the sun, but his story has been severely twisted, and I'm sure that you can possibly make the same case with a lot of other religious figures, that they did exist, but their stories have been twisted. What's your take on that idea, Stewart?
Yes, and I've written about this in most of my books and spoken about it in my videos. Yes, those individuals that did exist, many of them were alien beings. Many of them were alien creations. Many of them were stories that were reiterated through various civilizations over time. For example, the story of Mary and Jesus is the same thing as Osiris and Isis and Horus. It's the same story. It's just reiterated in different civilizations over and over. This is part of an alien agenda to steer humanity in a certain direction. So yes, those people existed, but they were not what the Bible tells you or what the history books tell you. Again, I implore people to read the Apocrypha, the stories in the Bible that were omitted from the Bible because they were telling the truth. And when you read about, what Enoch talks about and Moses and Abraham, your mouth will fall open. They were worse than you read about ISIS now. They killed people, beheaded people, killed women and children, and took their possessions. And they said, "Oh, and God thought that was a good idea." Really? What kind of God is that? This is not what people think. If you read the stories, you'll never believe in religion. This is a form of control. God has no religion. Yes, God exists. It's all that exists. It's all of creation. It is not a person. It's not a persona. You can't label it as Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha. That's an insult to the God mind to say it's this name and you must believe in this way. That's ridiculous. It's all things. God mind created all things in all ways, and all things are okay if you use them properly. So that's what people have to realize. No religion has been the cause of all wars and destruction since time began. Look at what's going on now in the Middle East. Look what's going on in Europe. Look what's going on here. It's ridiculous to believe in an entity that was an alien being or an alien creation designed to control people. And that's my story about it, my idea about it. People can accept it or reject it. But I also would ask that people read the Talmud of Emmanuel, which was found encased in resin in Jerusalem by a Palestinian professor. And it talks about the alien creation of the Christ figure, and that it was not natural, and that it was designed to steer people in a certain direction. And of course, he was killed. Anyone who tells the truth and has proof of that truth is in big trouble. So that's unfortunately what we're up against these days. All religion. And as far as Buddhism is concerned, if you know about the Buddhism and you study, and I've been to Buddhist locations, I've been to Tibet, I've been to India, I've been to all these places. Buddhism can be quite brutal. Do you know that Tibetan monks, Buddhist monks, they drill holes in your forehead to access the pineal gland to open you up? I mean, that's brutal. I've experienced the monasteries in Tibet and in India, and I was horrified by what I saw. So no, I mean, you want to be a Buddhist? Go there and see what they live like and how they really are, and then decide.
Okay, switching gears, you've talked about the Draco reptilians and how they manipulate our reality so much, but it has been said by some, I had two ET contactees in particular who have talked about this in great detail. Ray Kusalandic and Andromeda Council contactee Tolek, they have talked about how our ET friends over the past several years have gone to great lengths to vastly shut down the reptilian bases on planet Earth. Like there was reptilian bases in the Indian Ocean, among other places, that were shut down by these ETs. These reptilians were blasting energies that were putting vast amounts of fear into places like the Middle East, which, by the way, is the hottest womb chakra of planet Earth. That's one reason they want to try to put so much war there, because it's the womb chakra of Mother Earth. They don't want Mother Earth to give birth to peace, so they make the Middle East have so much war. So they were blasting fear-based energy beams, but these ETs have shut down the reptilian bases to prevent that from happening. And that earthquake that happened in like mid 2011 in America that caused a crack in the Washington Monument, it has been asserted by some Andromeda Council contacting Tolek that earthquake was not a natural event. It was caused by ETs blasting a beam of energy down into the earth to shut down and destroy the reptilian bases that are below the earth. And Ray Kusalanich has said there's only about 200 reptilians on planet Earth right now. When I had Tolek on my show recently, I asked him, well, when he says there's 200 reptilians, does that include like Queen Elizabeth, Hillary Clinton, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, George Bush, and Al Gore, and all the other shape-shifting reptilians that David Icke fans would say are masquerading as humans? And Tolek wasn't really able to give me a direct answer on that. He said, I really don't look into what David Icke says too much as I listen to my own ET contacts, but I suppose it is possible that those people, if they truly are shape-shifting reptilians, could be in that number 200 or so that are still functioning on planet Earth. So this idea that we have ET friends who are shutting down reptilian bases and the reptilian population has dramatically decreased to help humanity attain higher consciousness, do you think there is truth to that?
Absolutely not. I've never heard such a load of rubbish in my entire life. Honestly, I mean, seriously, that's complete programming. And I'll tell you something else. You can't tell how there's 200. Did he count them? I mean, did they give their passports in to show how many reptilians are here? They've always been here. There are no ETs that are helping, period. There are no alien beings that are doing anything for the benefit of mankind. All the beings who are here have their own agenda, and there are many, many different agendas. No one could say it's this or it's that. There are dozens of different agendas, and they're not for the benefit of human beings. In fact, in many cases, human beings are considered parasites and need to be eliminated by many of these beings. The benevolent beings don't come here. They allow humans to have their own experience. They don't interfere. The only ones who come here to interfere or do things are the ones with an agenda, period. So no, all that's absolute rubbish.
Okay, I hate to put you on the spot, but it's a fair question. Then what information, or where are these ET contactees that are telling this stuff, getting their information? Do you actually think they're being brainwashed by malevolent forces and their contacts are actually not good guys as they believe there are, or do you not really want to talk about this?
Have you read any of my information? I talk about this for the last several decades as part of Green Star programming from the government. It's from satellite transmissions. It's an alter personality that opens up within the matrix of the mind pattern of that person that gives us crap information. It's going on for decades. It doesn't come from ETs. It comes from their mind pattern connected to a satellite that's connected to the NSA headquarters that gives this information out. It's a bunch of malarkey. And I know the people who wrote the programs.
Okay, the NSA, it only makes sense that we talk about this in greater detail because, Edward Snowden, he keeps saying he doesn't keep saying it, but he did say quite a while back, it seems, that he's going to show a holy shit revelation at some point, but he really hasn't revealed any holy shit revelation of any sort. And when I had Sherry Edwards, who's a bioacoustic voice analyst on my show, she claims that from Edward Snowden's voice and analyzing his voice bioacoustically, she could determine that the reason he has been very selective and really isn't releasing a lot of information at this point is because he's using the information, the whistleblower information, as a shield or a protective cloak around him, as a way of saying, stay away from me. If you try to harm me, I'm going to release this information that's going to make you look bad and tarnish your reputation. I mean, I really don't know where that idea that he gets comes from, because I would think that if he just released everything all at once, then he's going to make everybody look really bad. And I can't imagine why they would want to harm him at that point, because he's done all the damage he could possibly do. So the idea that he's wearing the information around him like a cloak and is releasing it to protect him, I say that doesn't really seem plausible, and I think he's making a big mistake not releasing it all at once. Do you agree or disagree with me, for lack of a better question?
Honestly, sometimes you say things, I don't know where the heck you've gotten them. Of course he's going to say things to protect himself. Plus, the information that is revealed to the public isn't the only information he's revealed. It's only what the news has given people. There's a lot of information he's revealed that is not public. He's revealed information about alien beings, about inner Earth, about what certain governments are doing. He's revealed that's not on the news. They only are selective in what they give to the public. So, yeah, I suppose that he is protecting himself, and I don't blame him. And just like Assange and this holdup in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, he's going to say things that are, just enough to reveal certain things and protect himself. I don't blame them for that.
Good, you're entitled to believe what you want to believe there. Although some people would certainly be, since you mentioned Assange, there's a lot of people that were quite disturbed when 9/11 happened and Julian Assange said, no, let's not talk about 9/11. That's just a diversion. And I remember in that TV series that Julian Assange did on RT back in, I think it was 2012, there was one interview he did with a political leader where he mentioned the death of Osama bin Laden. And he actually acted, Assange did, as though the killing of Osama bin Laden was what the story that our government and media told us was the true story. And I almost wanted to, I was like, if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying right now, because there is no way that Assange, allegedly the world's greatest whistleblower, does not know that 9/11 was an inside job. There is no way he does not know that the official story of Osama bin Laden's death is a load of pig crap. I mean, do you have any theory as to why he would want to play dumb in regards to some issues like that?
Because he wants to get the heck out of London. And if he says certain things, they may be more conducive to allowing him to leave. He knows what the truth is, and he knows that what 9/11 was all about. And he also knows that Osama bin Laden died in October 2001, and ever since then they're just using this fake persona to scare people, because they know that if you put fear in people, you can program them more easily. And that's why when they supposedly attacked his base in Pakistan, they dumped his body in the ocean so that they wouldn't have to show anything, because it didn't exist. And so you know that already. And so he wants to get out of the Ecuadorian embassy. So he's going to say things that will allow them to maybe be more kindly towards him in the near future.
Okay, just a quick note. You mentioned Osama bin Laden died in October 2001. There seems to be some debate about this. Stephen Pachenik, in an interview with Alex Jones way back in the day, he said that Osama bin Laden died in December 2001 of Marfan syndrome. However, former Pakistani President Benazir Bhutto said that Osama bin Laden was killed, I believe she said, by another double agent or something. And the interesting thing is, after Stephen Pachenik, who at the time was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, said that he died in December 2001 of Marfan syndrome, it caused a firestorm in the Council on Foreign Relations, and everybody was giving Pachenik a lot of hell for that. And Benazir Bhutto, after she said that bin Laden was murdered, she was mysteriously dead, supposedly murdered by people who didn't appreciate her telling this. But the thing is, I'm hearing two different sides of the story, and I'm thinking, okay, so in one timeline, did bin Laden die of Marfan syndrome, and was he murdered in another timeline? And these two witnesses, Pachenik and Bhutto, are getting information from other timelines. I mean, they both can't be right, but if there are more than one timeline, then they can be right. But then again, they both got criticized, or in Bhutto's case, murdered, because they talked about bin Laden being dead for a non-official story manner. So could you perhaps play the role of arbiter or referee here, Stewart, and solve the confusion here in regards to this issue?
I can only tell you what I know. I'm not going to argue about what other people said, because that's That's their stuff. I know that he died of kidney disease in October 2001. Now, maybe that information wasn't revealed until December of that year. The bottom line is he was dead in 2001. And so he was not in charge of everything that went on subsequent to that, obviously. So that's everyone that needs to decide for themselves. Like who shot Kennedy and what happened with 9/11. Everybody can decide for themselves. The bottom line is it's not what the news told you.
Damn straight, the government, the media lie to us so much. It's not even funny. Okay, one thing that you often try to do is move your consciousness beyond space and time to determine your foundational mind pattern on which life experiences are based. I'm going to have to ask you to give me a couple minutes here to talk about an understanding of how the higher planes in our reality work, and then based on your understanding of hyperspace and all the rest of it, maybe you can confirm or debunk how this actually, if this is the true way of how reality works. I did a show about this way back in the day that I had to host alone. And my source for this is silverlegion.org. The Silver Legion is a group of benevolent extraterrestrials who kick ass and save people and do all sorts of good things for everybody. And Tanath is the ET contactee who is on Earth to communicate with the Silver Legion. But anyway, the first layer, according to her research, the Silver Legion's research, is the ethereal plane, the layer closest to physical Earth. It is essentially a fluid shadow duplicate of the physical Earth. You will see similar things in it to how they appear in the physical world, only they will be somewhat transparent and insubstantial. Above that, you have the second layer, the dreamlands. The dreamlands are where we go when we sleep and dream. Everything here is highly fluid and malleable. Things change from one instance to the next, often unpredictably and randomly. Third layer, the astral plane. This is what most people think of as the astral plane, much like dreamlands. It is intuitively malleable, though here you will begin to encounter entities that have their own existence completely separate from any part of the physical realm. Things come and go here. Constructs and places are likely to dissolve away if energy and concentration is not invested into them to keep them around. And then above that is, actually between the astral and above is the barrier. Let me see. There's a barrier between the third level of the planes and those higher. We don't know exactly who or what created it. That this is the line where 3D ends and 4D begins, some people believe. And then I'm almost done here. The fourth to sixth layers, the paths and realms of spirit. Beyond the barrier, you begin to enter the paths and realms. And there's a picture here that sort of looks somewhat like the hyperspace picture that we were all familiar with, but not quite the same. Paths are exactly what they sound like, spaces that exist between realms. Realms are discrete areas that persist over time. Individuals who have attained a certain degree of mastery may be able to influence the paths and realms. One of these is... the paths and realms are infinite enough that it could almost make one say, what could possibly be beyond that? And the key is they're infinite, which means that basically everything you have to, that you can imagine has to exist. In other words, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny, they have to exist by virtue of the fact that the paths and realms are infinite. And then beyond that is the outlands. That's the area where the lines between this universe and the next begin to blur. If you step too far, you might end up in a world you thought was fictional, or in an area and place where nothing works as you expect it to. So that's it in a nutshell. I've babbled long enough. Your understanding of how consciousness and the universe construct works, does that resonate with it, or are there maybe some differences or general things you want to point out?
Oh my God, Andrew. I mean, honestly, I don't know where you get this stuff. First of all, I'm sorry, but any channeled information and benevolent ETs, that's programming crap, period. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's what I know, and you can accept it or not, but that's crap. The existence is not so complicated, for goodness sake. I mean, these are supposed to be, higher beings, and they don't know who created what or what goes where. Seriously? No. I talk about it in my language of hyperspace seminar, the very basics. There's only three distinctions. There's physical reality, the astral layers, and hyperspace. period. And ultimately, it's really all one anyway, because there's only one God mind, and it's simply a matter of perspective, of a level of understanding that distinguishes all of that. And so basically, you can think of physical reality as the yolk of the egg, that astral planes are the shell that contain the physical, and everything beyond the shell is a hyperspace, and it's infinite and beyond anything that the human mind can comprehend at the moment. But we have access to all of it at all times with all understanding. And if it's just if you look at the hyperspace work, if you look at how to properly do your release work, work with the pineal gland, work with the colors in the proper sequence and the proper archetype, everyone in existence can do and access everything with full understanding, no confusion, no doubt. And it's just as simple as that. We exist in the physical reality, which is simply dense energy. It's all energy anyway. There are astral layers. There are many, many layers to the astral planes. The lower layers are filled with demonic entities, government programming, alien technology. It's a very dangerous place to go. So when people say they're going to learn about astral projection, I think that's a very silly thing to do. I believe you should go straight to the hyperspace level. Hyperspace is the foundation of all creation. It's pure thought, pure energy, pure transmission of all things and total understanding. And that's what I teach in my classes, and that's what my students learn. And there's no issue with all these different layers and complexities that you mentioned, which sound like a programming matrix and not the way of true existence in the mind of God. And that's my perspective on it. And again, everyone could take it or leave it, but the universe and all of existence is not so complicated. It's actually quite simple. It's human beings that make it complicated.
Yeah, we do make things more complicated than they need to be. However, it goes without saying that one's construct of how the universe works, like one example being how many dimensions there are, is basically a matter of personal construct. George Kavasilis, he made that very clear to me when I told him, like, you say there are 12 dimensions, but there's other people that give different numbers. Like it seems like there's two different number of dimensions that
wait. I never said there's 12 dimensions.
I know you didn't, but I'm saying that other people have given, it seems like there's two prominent groups. Like there's a 12-dimensional group and a 22-dimensional group. And when I asked George Kavasilis, can you see anything in your 12-dimensional construct that could cause someone to see that and see that instead as a 22-dimensional construct? And looking at the construct for a moment, he said, yes, come to think of it, there is one part in that construct that I could think of that someone might see as 10 different dimensions, but I only see it as one. In my private session with him, which is on my YouTube channel, he does go into great detail on that if anybody wants to check it out. But this whole thing that I brought up of how many people are either in a 12-dimension or a 22-dimension construct, and like 10 layers in the 22-dimension construct can be seen as one layer. Do you have any comments about that whole thing?
You cannot give a number to the amount of dimensions that exist. They're infinite. There's not 12, there's not 22, there's not a million. It's infinite. It's a question of what you are aware of at any given moment, period. There's infinite everything. The universe is not a number. It doesn't have a number. It's infinite. That's what infinity is about, and that's what creation is about. It goes in all directions at all times. There's no time and space. So no, I could take a room and divide it into 40 compartments and say there's 40 rooms when there's really just one room with 40 compartments. So there's only one creation, and you can delineate as much as you want within it. It's infinite.
Well, it's infinite, but some might say it makes more sense to think of it as boundless but finite. And that somewhat certainly makes sense if you think of it as that, because, well, think of a number line or look at a ruler between the numbers 1 inch and 2 inch. Like it's a finite distance between that inch. However, decimal points go into infinity, like the number pi. It's never ending. It goes into infinity. It's greater than 3. It's less than 4. but it goes into infinity. So one might say by virtue of the fact that like decimal points go into infinity, then that means that reality is boundless but finite. And also the Mandelbrot set, that structure that sort of looks like a beetle. It's a finite structure, but yet it's boundless in the sense that if you can zoom in on it into infinity. So this raises the whole question, is it fair to say that it is infinite, or do you maybe have to put an asterisk on the word infinite and say, but it's also finite, if you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, but that is not what creation is about. If it's infinite, it's infinite. The prefix infinite means it's not finite. So no, it is not finite, and you can't compare a ruler to the mind of God. You're using a human concept and extrapolating that into the mind of God. You cannot do that. It's not possible. And so I guess everyone has to go to the limit of their understanding and use whatever concepts they need to understand whatever they need to understand at the moment. But again, that doesn't change what actuality is. It might be their reality, but that's not what the actuality is.
Fair enough. And one thing that people cannot seem to agree on is when. I hate to use the word when, because when you realize time is an illusion, you realize it's not the when, it's the what, cause and effect. But people are still going to give a time period on this whole thing. And it seems like a lot of people are giving the year 2017 as a major time of consciousness shift. However, it should be pointed out that some others, like prominent figures like Stephen Adkins, in those series of interviews, like a couple of interviews he did with Michelle Walling on N5D Radio, talked about how in this upcoming September, the time period between September 21st and September 28th, we're going to see like a super wave of sorts. Like Peter Laviolette has talked about super waves throughout the cosmos. We're going to see one of those hit us around that time period in September, and that's a very significant time period. Some people say that there's an asteroid that's supposed to hit the Atlantic Ocean on the 24th of September, although in my interview with Andromeda Council contactee Tolek, he did say his ET contacts told him that they will make sure that asteroid doesn't hit the Earth. Make of that whatever you will. But in addition to that, we have the final lunar eclipse in a series of tetrad lunar eclipses on the 28th. I'm actually going to be in the Arizona desert tripping on peyote. I scheduled a peyote ceremony for that. I sure hope the lunar eclipse doesn't screw out with my mind when I do that. Okay, but I'm digressing. But the point is that September period is very significant. And also Jewish calendar wise, it's set for a super Shemitah. This dude, Jonathan Kahn, who interviewed Leanne McAdoo on InfoWars, talked about how every 7 years we have a Shemitah. Every 49 years we have a super Shemitah. The super Shemitah is in that time period in September. Mr. Cat Eye, who does like Google Doodle and crop circle coding analysis on his YouTube channel, he says there's a lot of codes that he's seen for that time period. And he talks about how in other timelines there's going to be a false flag on like the 23rd and the 24th of September. And last but not least, Matt Kahn, who interviewed Haled Lipson on N5D Radio, said that he thinks 1/3 of humanity will resonate with 5D consciousness by that lunar eclipse on the 28th of September. So this whole thing about September of this year being significant and also 2017 being a very significant year, do you have any comments about that?
I have talked about this ad infinitum in the last few months. I have done webinars on this. I have done seminars on this. Yes, September is very important, but it is an Illuminati construct. It is they taking information from the Bible, like that 7-year period, which leads actually to a Jubilee period in 2017. And isn't it interesting that the Pope has declared next year a Jubilee year? And so, yes, there's going to be a financial crash. There's going to be all kinds of false flag events. Yes, all of these things will happen, but they are staged by the Illuminati, again, to create fear and to make people believe that the book of Revelation is true and that the prophecies of the Bible are true and that only the government can save them. And that's what that's all about. It has nothing to do with God throwing thunderbolts at us. That's not happening. It's just a creation of the Illuminati to create scenarios of fear and disturbance for the programming. There's no asteroid that's going to hit the Earth. There is no wave of whatever. I mean, that's all New Age. You know how many times I've heard that in the last umpteen years? It's going to be this year, it's going to be that year, it's going to be this month. And it never happens because it's not going to happen. You want to upgrade yourself? You want to go into a higher level? Do it right the frick now. You don't have to wait till 2017 or till September. Everyone has the capacity to open up their minds and to connect to their true self right now. You don't need any wave of energy. You don't need an asteroid. You don't need a jubilee year or anything else. You could do it right now. And that's what people need to understand. They're always looking for something external to themselves instead of looking within themselves and realizing that they are connected to creation. They are connected to the Creator, and all the power is within them right now. And that's what people need to understand. I don't believe in these dates. I don't believe in all of these New Age, dribble about, energies coming in. Please, I've heard this umpteen times, and it's just a bunch of crap. It's all within you right now.
Yes, and since you mentioned that, I hate to have you play the role of psychiatrist on my show here, but I think you were in the queue when I mentioned this, how before my show today, I felt like I was a little sabotaged by having my little orgone chips that were supposed to protect me from EF energy from my phone disappear. And this is the third time that chip has disappeared. And to make matters worse, that large pyramid, like 2.5-inch tall, 3-inch base pyramid that I have, I accidentally broke it today. And I got some psychic channeler who I spoke to who's the wife of the guy who owns the site that sold me this stuff. She said my grandfather from the other side, my paternal grandfather who died in the year 2000, said that they were taken from me as an attention grabbing thing, has something to do with family lineage problems. And after I said that, I said, well, maybe what they're trying to tell me is you don't need this stuff to help you because you're already infinite. However, anybody could tell you, no, it does help. It does help to use like Egyptian healing rods. I have my own pair of Egyptian healing rods. It cost me $350, and I feel that it's done me well. I always keep an orgone chip on my computer. I take Survival Shield to protect me from Fukushima radiation. And yet some people would say, no, don't do that because you're infinite. You can protect yourself without those things. And I tell them, oh yeah, why don't you stand right in front of the Fukushima reactor and say, I am infinite. I cannot be harmed, and see what happens to you. So Stewart,
well,
how do you?
You know what? I did that. I was in Fukushima, okay? And I'm fine. Because those people are telling you the truth. It's in your mind. Rods aren't going to help you, and crystals aren't going to help you. That's a crutch. It tells you, yeah, use the crutch and not yourself. That's what those people who told you to use your mind, they're correct. And all those so-called sabotages that happen when you lost all this, yeah, it's a good thing because now use your mind. Use your own protection, your own ability to create whatever you need to create. That's what you need to do. It's not your grandfather, and it's not Mohammed, and it's not the Archangel Michael. It's you. It's your mind connected to the Creator that's telling you, hey, you don't need these crutches. Use your own ability. That's what it's telling you.
Okay, but I'm sure you understand a lot of people would say that crutch is not a particularly good word. Like people often say, like, you consume alcohol to make you happy. You're using it as a crutch. But some people, yeah, but some people would say like other substances, like maybe peyote. Like I said, I'm going to do peyote in a shamanic ceremony during that Tetrad eclipse on the 28th of September. I made reservations for that with some Native Americans, courtesy of peyote.org. Now, some would say you're not using that as a crutch, you're using that as a shamanic inebriant and entheogen. And if you're using a substance as an entheogen, or like you could maybe say a crystal or a healing rod as an entheogen, you're not using it as a crutch, you're using it for shamanic purposes. So how do you define the word crutch, Stewart? I'm a little confused.
A crutch is anything that you need external to yourself that takes away from your ability to use your own mind. And yes, peyote is a crutch, and ayahuasca is a crutch. In fact, not all that crutches, they're dangerous. I was a developmental specialist in mental health clinics for a bit of time, and I worked with people who took that stuff and never came back. Their minds were completely gone. And I'm telling you right now, you better think twice before you do that kind of thing, because you might be sorry afterwards, and then it'll be too late. It destroys your brain cells. It destroys your genetics. My wife is a Native American, and she doesn't use that. She just uses her mind. All these things about these native shamans and in North America and South America, it's all a scam for dopey Western Europeans who think that these things are going to help them, and then they pay money for it, and then they have problems afterwards. The American Indians, the Native Americans, they didn't do that. Okay, they didn't use it like that. It was other things that were going on that they don't give to the public. They don't share with the public. So I'm just telling you right now, all of this is for show and is very dangerous. And you can even talk to my wife about it. She's Cherokee, and she'll tell you about that stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of people would assert that Mother Earth, she gave this stuff to us, like mushrooms or tobacco or marijuana, as God's gift to help us temporarily expand our consciousness, to help us out in the long run, if that makes sense. Would Mother Earth, is that what Mother Earth did? Or if they're mistaken, then why did Mother Earth put those substances on the Earth?
Mother Earth didn't do any of that stuff. I told you that this was a water planet. There was nothing here. Everything was brought here and created here from elsewhere. Okay, all that Mother Earth stuff, that's New Age mind control programming stuff. And I know that a lot of people don't like me to say that. They get angry when I say that, just like vegetarians don't like me to tell them that you need to eat red meat, otherwise you're going to pass away eventually from anemia and iron deficiency. The Earth gave us a lot. It also gave us arsenic. The Earth also gave us a poison. So, they gave us that too. So should we use that? You have to use your mind pattern. You have to use your discernment and realize that everything is from one source, and how you use it and what you do with it is your mind pattern that allows that. I could take a pen and write a beautiful poetry with it and make a beautiful drawing with it, or I could stab you with it. It's not the pen's fault. It's whoever uses it and what they do with it. And just like all these New Age people that say, oh, you just have to love and love the aliens and love the Illuminati and it'll go away. Really? Because that's not what's going to happen. Love is an energy. I can love you unconditionally, or I could love you to death. It's the same energy. It's two sides of the same energy. It's how I apply it. So it's the same thing with everything else. It's how you apply the energy. You don't need a crystal. I could take the crystal and hit you in the head with it, or I can meditate with it. Same crystal. It's what I do with it. It's not the crystal, it's what you do with it. And the same thing, it's not the peyote or the ayahuasca, it's what you do with it. And everybody I know who's used that, they go right into the lower astral, they connect to the demonic entities who masquerade as angels and fool you into thinking that you're getting some kind of an enlightenment when in fact you're being demonically attached. And it's just a very, very sad situation what's going on, how people think that they're becoming spiritual when in fact they're going into the dark side. People need to use their own mind. You don't need drugs. You don't need a shaman. You don't need anybody except yourself.
The idea that when you use that stuff, you go into the astral realm and you encounter demonic entities, one would say, well, the key to solve that problem is if you choose to use that stuff, before you use it, make sure you ask your guardian angels and spirit guides to allow for only the highest good to come from that stuff. So why is that wrong?
Totally New Age crap. You don't have spirit guides, and your own self is your spirit guide, for goodness sake. If anybody reads my work, you wouldn't be asking these questions of me, because this is all New Age mind control stuff that you're telling me. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to take the knife and ask my angels to take the cancer out of me. I'm just going to stab it into my abdomen and the cancer will come out. Go ahead and see what happens with that, because the knife is going to kill you. And so if you go into these things and you say, well, I'm going to ask the drug to give me, spiritual, seriously, what a justification is that? Seriously. You need to really ask yourself why you're doing this and why you need to do that instead of using your own mind pattern. People only use 10% or less of their brain and only 3% of their DNA. So if you learn to use the other 90% of your brain and the other 97% of DNA, you won't need all these things. You could do everything on your own.
Well, of course you can, because you're infinite, but your claim that it's about the whole New Age mumbo jumbo thing, some people would say the New Age movement, it was created to trap all those people who realized that religions were scams. But some people, like David Icke, among others, I have read this in his books. I have read some of his books. He says, like, in regards to what the New Age movement says about metaphysics, I agree with them. But where I disagree with them is their claim that you can solve all the problems of the world by thinking about love all the time. Now, that's where the trap comes in. But the fact that he said, metaphysically speaking, I agree with the New Age movement, and many other people would attest to the same thing, including, among other things, the existence of guardian angels and spirit guides, which remote viewers say. We have remote viewed, we have seen angels that hover around, but they don't interfere unless you either ask them or if the situation is dire. So the idea that New Age movement has their metaphysics right, to what extent do you agree with that statement?
Quite honestly, Andrew, I have disagreed with almost everything you've said since we started speaking, because all of it is mind control that you've mentioned. In my work, I describe the soul personality, the oversoul, the God-mind connection. You are your own guide. Your own oversoul is your so-called master angel or guiding angel. It's your own self. It's like all these people have these Indian guides. Well, there weren't that many Indians in existence for all these people to have all these Indian guides. Okay, this is mind control programming alters. And the angelic frequency is part of your own oversoul energy. It is you. It's not an entity assigned to you or separate from you. It's a part of you in another level of reality. That's what those things are. And so, yes, you can tap into them whenever you want, but they're not separate from you. They are you. And again, it's a crutch. Like when I teach people how to work with their energy fields and do the chakra spins, they say, well, I'll just ask my angel to do it. Oh, I'll just ask my archangel to do this. Well, where the heck is your own responsibility? What are you going to do? You can ask all these so-called spiritual beings to do these things for you. What are you doing? Just walking around and having all these angels do things for you?
Well, this is
Really?
interesting, Stewart, because when I was at that retreat in Atlanta, Georgia, during Independence Day weekend, one of the hottest debates that we had in conversation was whether it is in your best interest or not in your best interest to ask your guides for help. Now, some people would say your guides are there to help you, ask them. But even I will admit, even when I first heard about the existence of all these angels and guides, I mean, I believed it and all, but at the same time, I felt a moral obligation to not ask them for help. I had a feeling that maybe I should just follow life with the mentality of keep the angels and guides out of it, just suck it up and do it yourself. However, before I go to bed every night, I always ask my angels and guides to keep my fellow humans and me safe from negative entities with negative intentions and help us realize that we're all infinite and help us realize our true infinite love potential. So I don't keep them out of it entirely. But as far as every day-to-day activity goes, I try to just suck it up and do it myself. And that was one of the most hotly debated things during that retreat, as we always seem to agree to disagree on the extent to which you should ask for help and not ask for help and do it yourself. Now, you seem like the kind of guy, Stewart, based on what you're saying, that it is in your best interest to just suck it up and do it yourself. But what harm I guess the best question for me to ask is, what harm can it do to ask help from these beings that are there to help you and want to help you and love you and want to get in tune with you if you just give them the chance?
Andrew, I might as well ask the wall or the floor to help me as well. These beings are part of you. They're not separate from you. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's no spirit guides assigned to you. There's no angels assigned to you. This is part of your own frequency. It's within your energy field. You. It's you, you, you. So you're asking yourself. You're not asking anything external. And you mentioned that you're asking these things to help, to eliminate the negativity and love, light, me. Well, it's not their. What right do you have to tell other people to feel that way? That has to come from themselves. Just like when there's a hurricane coming and people say, "Oh, pray for the people in those areas." Well, what if the hurricane was there because those people attracted it because they needed that experience, and then I'm going to do something to take away their experience? What right do I have to do that? But let those people work on their own issues like that. And that's not being cruel or detached. It means everyone must have their own experience. Everything that you experience, you've attracted, and no one has the right to take that away from you. Even if they think that you shouldn't have it, what right do they have to determine that? That's your decision, not theirs. And so you can't ask these beings to take away negative energies from others or from yourself. You have to do that. For goodness sake, where is the responsibility? And that's why the world is the way it is, because no one's taking responsibility. They're just letting come what may. And they talk about changing timelines and changing the past. This is all diversion. This is all a mask. This is all covering up the truth so that no one really does what they're supposed to be doing. And that's what my work is about. Go inside of yourself. Who cares what's on the news? Who cares what the Illuminati plan to do? You don't have to be affected by it. Change your mind pattern. Project out from your own being what you want to experience, and that's what you will experience no matter what is going on around you. And that's the whole point of existence. We all live in our own little universe, see? And then we have a commonality that we agree, that the tree is green and the sky is blue, and so we agree on that so we can live in the same reality type. That's what's going on here. It's a frequency, it's energy, it's vibration. And that is what we need to work on, not all these external things that are diversions and crutches and take away from your own power.
Well said, Stewart. Just so you know, we have 9 minutes and 50 seconds until the live feed goes off. Just try to keep the show to 2 hours, but if you want to finish a thought or something, we can maybe go a minute or so past the live feed if you want to finish any final words. But the whole idea you just mentioned of how if you see a hurricane coming to people and you want to stop it, but yet those people, maybe they need the hurricane as a wake-up call or something. Well, at the same time, it's perfectly natural for people to try to take advantage of the fact that energy flows where attention goes. So naturally, if a hurricane or anything like some natural disaster was knowingly going to hit a certain area, I could certainly imagine a lot of people that were aware of that would want to get together in a big group and try to do a huge group meditation to try to cancel out, or at the very least suppress the dangers of that natural disaster. And what you're saying, what right do you have to do that when those people that were going to suffer that natural disaster needed to use that natural disaster as a wake-up call? Okay, they needed it as a wake-up call, fair enough. But I can't see how people that want to help other people by using group meditations and such could be doing a bad thing. I mean, they had no way of realizing that those people got what they deserved as a wake-up call. So how would you, Stewart, draw the line between helping people out in that regard or not helping at all and thinking, okay, I'm not going to do that, even though I could do a group meditation with everybody to help them. I'm just going to not do it because they get what they deserve. Where's the line there?
The line is that you can't have a group meditation. Let's say a hurricane's coming to Florida. There's millions and millions of people, and 15 people decide they're going to take the hurricane away. Well, what about the other umpteen million people that have attracted that because they needed that experience? Do you have a right to decide for them that they shouldn't experience that? Because you know what? If you do that, you're going to experience something a lot worse in retribution for that, because you've taken away an experience from somebody. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, can you teach me how to mitigate something that I've created? Yeah, I'll teach them how to do that, and it's up to them to do that for themselves. But if they say, can you teach me how to, take away this evil energy from my friend at work? Well, that's not your business. That's the business of your friend at work, because they attracted that. See? So everyone needs to know how to work on themselves and project that out into their environment, and you can teach other people how to do that, and that in itself will stop negative experiences from happening, because people won't need them anymore. But if something is happening, like an earthquake, a tornado, whatever it happens to be, and it hits a particular area, it's not an accident. It's not the God punishing anybody. It's because the people in that area created it, because that's what their mind patterns produced. Just like if you drink too much Coca-Cola, you're going to burp. So, they did that to themselves, and you can't take it out of them. That they have to change that for themselves. And so it's not a question of deciding what another person's experience should be. You have no right to do that. Even if it looks harmful, even if it looks dangerous, nobody asked you to do that. And it's not your business to do that. You can care about it. You can pray that the best outcome exists. You can do that. But to stop the experience, that's actually against cosmic law.
Well, that I guess we'll end this show on this very difficult question to ask: the whole issue of to what extent we have the right to harass and hassle the sheeple to make them wake up. Now, first of all, the question we must ask is, do people have the right to act like sheeple? Now, I understand people are going to have, some people might have a problem with me using the word sheeple, but I'm not using the word in a derogatory sense. I'm just using it because the word has stuck over the course of time to describe people who want to be lost in the matrix and such. One could make this argument. People should not have the right to be sheeple, because when you are being a go-along to get along sheeple that will accept tyranny and not care about fighting for freedom and all, you are harming the rest of society. Because by being a sheeple, you are harming everybody else who is awake and wants to awake, and you're making life more miserable for them, because, simply put, the more sheeple there are on planet Earth, the harder it is for humanity to overpower the powers that be. Likewise, the easier it is for the powers that be to control humanity if there's more sheeple. Now, that raises the question, do we have the right to hassle and harass the sheeple? Now, I'm not going to go out on a limb, go off the deep end here and say that we should do to the sheeple what that guy in the movie They Live did to his friend who refused to put on the glasses. Now, that's going way off into the deep end. However, if you present incontrovertible facts of like a government conspiracy, and the sheeple give an answer like, well, I don't care what the evidence says, I won't believe it, I refuse to believe it because I can't handle the truth. Now, at that point, is it okay to grab the sheeple by the neck and say, wake up out of your trance, dumbass. You're making life miserable for everybody who's awake. If you don't wake up, I'm going to make you find out just how hard it is for life is going to be for all of us if you don't wake up. Now, some would say, no, that's a violation of the golden rule of treat others like you want to be treated. But some would say, no. If I was a sheeple and someone whacked me in the face for being a sheeple, then I got what I deserve for making life miserable for everybody. So don't tell me that I'm violating no stinking golden rule by hassling and harassing the sheeple. So this whole controversial issue of to what extent can we hassle and harass the sheeple, to finish the show on this controversial note, Stewart, we got 3 minutes and 40 seconds till the live feed is up.
Once again, what you just stated takes away all responsibility from everybody, because you have no right to wake anybody up if they don't want to be woken up. It's there, and you're not affecting the ones who woke up by not believing it. That's their stuff. Okay, if I want to believe the earth is flat and you want to believe it's round, what do you care? What difference is it? Does it change the truth? No. So everyone should believe what they want to believe until they learn otherwise. If you impose your will on others, you become just like the Illuminati. Then you're no different than them, and that's why you attracted them. So in fact, you're the one with the problem, not the one who didn't believe. You understand? So you need to let everyone take responsibility, believe what they want to believe. They will learn their own lessons, and no one is affecting or ruining the life of the ones who are awake by not believing, because if your life is ruined, it's because you made it that way. There's something else in your life that you're projecting out that's screwing up whatever you want to experience. So you have to change, not the other people. You can't blame them. You can't smack them in the head and make them believe. I always say, if you have to argue with someone to try to convince them, you're already lost. It has to come from within the person. You cannot impose your will on others. Then you become just like the ones you're trying to eliminate. So that's my feeling on all of that. Everyone needs to take responsibility. Don't worry about what the other person believes. Be concerned what you believe and how your life is. And if you change the mind pattern and you think the proper way, it won't matter what other people believe. And that's the bottom line of the whole thing.
Thank you very much, Stewart. What a great way to end this show. What a controversial way, but a great way nonetheless. Well, there isn't really any time for any more questions, so I'm going to end this show by telling you the same thing I tell all of my guests. Stewart, you are a fascinating individual, and I have no doubt that I could do another show with you if I wanted to, but one of my goals with this radio show is to get as many different people on my show as possible before I give any one specific guest double dips, because I feel that is the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way of doing true and false nature of reality. So that does mean, I regret to say, Stewart, that I probably will not be asking you to come on my show again, but that's only because I need to give hundreds of other fascinating individuals the chance to have some glory on my show. It was a pleasure having you on. This was indeed a fascinating interview, even though we agreed to disagree. We definitely got some very important information out in the process, and people can use their own discernment to make of it what they want. I will upload this interview to YouTube to make sure that people get this information. And I'll post it on other media forums and social networks and such to make that happen all the more. Stewart, I wish you luck. I wish you don't get sabotaged. And luckily, your voice didn't break up or anything like that during this interview. And I do wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. You're a great guy.
Thank you, Andrew, and I wish the same for you.
All right. Take care. Maybe we'll see each other at a future conference or something. Later.
All right.
Later. Okay, folks, that is the end of this show. Next week, I will not actually be doing a live show. I will be doing a pre-recording session from 6 to 8 p.m. next Wednesday with Mark Devlin, another speaker at the Philadelphia Free Mind Conference. He will be pre-recording that from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern next week, on next Wednesday, and then I will upload that interview at some point after I record it. So that was the end of this show. This is Andrew Fisher signing off. Namaste. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness.